right. SpookT. Big fan, a lot of fun. This is more than just your normal haunted house movie. Um, Now, was there anything that sort of inspired the film, the story in the film?
So we had finished another project, Tori and I, and it was like, what do we want to do next? And this is a boring answer, but basically we're like, well, let's look at. We're both kind of like deep into like analytics and things like that. So we're like, well, let's see what's popular, and so we did some research and movies on Redbox that are very popular are haunted house films, and then movies on Netflix that do really well are ghost films. So we're like, okay, well, maybe we just do both, right? And so that's where it sort of started. And then I'm actually from the town where the story takes place in Spook. So I would just start sending Tori some ideas of like, well, here's some real things that happen in our town. And then Tori took a lot of these little disjointed stories and put them together. And we sort of, that's how Spooked began.
So I'm a huge X-Files fan. So one of the dynamics between the two leads, Claire and Rachel, believer and skeptic, um, this approach hasn't been used in a while. Usually, you
Right.
get like these paranormal people that come in and they're all on the same page. So, uh, what was what was the thinking behind that dynamic, and how did you make it work so well? I mean, they have
So,
lovely chemistry, don't you?
oh, thank you. Yeah. So that's Haley Leary and Kristen Charisse and playing Rachel and Claire. And my favorite film, it has nothing to do with this, but was Night of the Comet. And so I was like, I wanted to see two strong female leads and put them in a situation. And then Tori is very much a paranormal guy, and we both love X Files. And I don't know that we ever explicitly discussed X Files, but I mean, we're both big X Files fans too. So I'm sure that bled into some of what we were thinking. And Vanessa, did you watch X Files? Are you a big X Files junkie?
I not as big. I've seen, several episodes, but I think that's a great kind of analogy with that. And I
It
love that you
is.
had these kind of parallel characters that were so different but yet had the same goal.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good take. I haven't actually heard anyone say that, but now that you say it, Sean, I'm like, yeah, that does
Yeah.
make a lot of sense.
Another thing is Lovecraftian elements, especially like towards as you start getting into the end with mad scientists and so a couple other
100%.
uh, strange things going on.
Yeah, the moment
Um,
you start reanimating the dead.
yeah, well,
We did so when we were Tori and I are huge fans of that kind of stuff. Mine is particular, like it's funny because I don't come in directly, like I love Reanimator, but I was more in the Mouth of Madness, the John Carpenter take of the Lovecraft style. And Tori and I talked a lot about that movie. And I actually assigned that movie to Haley and Kristen to watch. And like, if you guys watch this movie and sort of take away just from the lead actors, his response to this situations, I think that's about the only way we could really normalize the responses to something that's so just wildly,
Right.
mad doctors, haunted creatures, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was a huge. We did talk a lot about that kind of style.
Eric Roberts too. I mean, a smaller role, but Academy Award nominee, all that. How is it working with him?
Vanessa.
Oh, it was great. I highly recommend it. The thing that I love about, he's so passionate about the craft and the process that at one point I was like, okay, like you do the Dark Knight and you've got this big everything, and then you come here and you're doing like it's the three of us and it's small. And he was like, I love acting. I just love this so much. And he brings it all, no matter what the project, no matter the budget. Like it was, I admire him greatly for that.
He was he was next level. He was better than everything that I imagined he would be in every way. In literally every way, he was different than I expected and better in every way. So when we got there, so Vanessa, Tori, and I went and filmed him in LA separately, and he and his wife came to set, and just lovely people. And we spent, I mean, I don't remember Vanessa, how many hours? It wasn't that long.
No, we were only there for like maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was
And
a
and And of the 2 hours, we maybe filmed 45 minutes tops. The rest of it was really talking about the character, really leaning into, he's like, I want this guy to have some pathos and an arc. And we really work through like different ways of delivery on lines, different alternates of lines, different mannerisms. I mean, he came with a lot of ideas that I was like, that's terrific. Like he had I think a cardiologist that he was good friends with, and he even went and spoke to him and was like, I just wanted to kind of understand that, you know, think a little bit more about the character, not just come into it and just be like, here I am, I'm Eric Roberts, and he's not. He was there to work.
That speaks so much to who he is, because the level of, I'd say, like research and extra stuff that he did for what to him might have been just a small little, okay, they want me because I'm Eric Roberts. Like he put in so much work for this, and to us, I mean, that's huge. That means so much, because I mean, you always hear like nobody's going to care about your film as much as you do, but to see that from an actor like him is really meaningful.
At our level, you know what I mean? Like, we're not the Dark Knight. We make no bones. We're not that level. We're not Eric.
We are not
Roberts
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, we're not. So it was just tremendous. Yeah. Surprise, John. We're not Christopher Nolan here.
Right. In case you were confused.
Yeah, I was worried. Thought I got on the wrong interview today.
It's us. It's us.
Just us.
All right. One of the questions I'm going to ask you, and I know how the film ends, so probably not so much, but do you think there is potential for Claire and Rachel to visit more haunted houses in the future?
So here's a fun little thing, and it's funny you should mention that. So it's a kind of a sad story, but Kristen, who did all of our wardrobe and she's worked with us forever, she got sick and she passed away during the filming of SpookT. But while she was sick, she was in bed for a little over a year and couldn't really do much. And so she and I worked on, like, the goal of mine was, like, I would never admit that she was as sick as she was. And we knew she was really sick. So I just couldn't let go. And she knew I couldn't let go. So she would work with me, and we broke this story for the sequel, if we ever, you know, whatever that would be. But, and so I brought it with me, and I'm going to send it home with Vanessa. We have an outline that we did. And if I was going to say what the sequel is, it would be Superbad meets Ocean's 11 in a high school. And that's the sequel. And yes, Claire and Rachel would both be back, but it's this wild sequel with all the characters that we set up in SpookT that we sort of bring to a head and some conclude in the sequel. And it was all Kristen and I, when she was just sick in bed, and she would tell me stories, and we were just trading these high school stories and these quirky things about small towns. And so I have it all written down. We broke this outline, but yeah, it's wildly different than SpookT. It would be an action horror, which is like that. My favorite genre of film would either be action or comedy. And I've never done an action horror, and that and a musical would be the two things on my bucket list. So we're working on both. So
that's awesome. I love hearing people actually like reaching their goals and like going for stuff. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So my last question is really the doll. The doll scares the hell out of me. What? Where did that thing come from?
Oh my gosh, that's so. Just to go back to Kristen, when I was growing up, there was we would live, that town, Greenville, is a real town, and it's next to it is a town called Atlantic, and it's an Amish community. I remember as a kid, this is kind of a wild story, but my aunt would love going to garage sales, yard sales, that kind of thing. So we would go to these things on weekends, and she took us to this Amish yard sale, right? And I don't know how familiar you are with the Amish community, but I was like, well, what would that be, right? So we get there, and they have three things that they sell. They sold Amish quilts, they sold apple pies, and they sold toys from Happy Meals. So those are the three things, and we were there, and that's all they had for sale. And I remember,
so they go to McDonald's.
Yeah, they go to McDonald's, but they don't. But they do the toys. See, they don't. I don't think they believe in like that kind of stuff. And so I remember it was in a barn, and they had all this stuff, and in the corner there were these Amish dolls. And I said, "Oh, are those for sale? And the lady was like, no, those are not for sale. And the Amish dolls, they don't have faces. And they're to me, that was the most horrifying thing, right? And so then that was an element that I sort of latched onto, and I told Tori about it. And then Tori wrote it. He's like, in the script, it even says, these are not, this ODB is not, it didn't have a name. In fact, Kristen named it, because Kristen created the doll, the same Kristen we were just talking about. And she named it ODB. And he's like, it's not an Amish doll. It is not, she just mistakes it for an Amish doll. And then as we were going through the film, Kristen was like, it's an Amish doll. It's an Amish doll. So there was this like back and forth. And so I was like, and I sort of, the one thing that I like to do is when you have someone as talented as a Vanessa or a Kristen or as a Tori on that you're working with, it's like, let them do them, right? Don't sort of like bring in your thoughts on something that they're in charge of. And she was in charge of the doll. So that ODB doll is 100% Kristen Goliath. She did design, created the whole doll and the face and everything. She's like, I don't want it to have a face, but I want it to kind of have a skin face. And so that whole thing, that was all Kristen. And then
it's so creepy.
It is creepy.
Yeah. And that was 100. In fact, the doll has a big part in the sequel that we talked about, because we all loved how the doll turned out. So that was very much Kristen. Kristen Goliath came up with that doll and the look and the feel and the creepiness.
Yeah, it's I'm a big fan of the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on FrightFest.
Thank you so much, Sean. We really appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
EVP session, living room of the Gibson house, Greenville, PA. This is Claire Barrett. Is anyone here with me?
And Greenville has some of the most activity out of any place I've ever been.
All right, folks, here's another battle. A lot of people know about Dr. Byler.
Think of all the lies I'll say. I will change the world.
But it's because of the supposed haunting and not the murders. A lot of weird stuff happens here in Greenville.
Where's Flora?
My star patient. She's almost ready for discharge. Nothing will harm her ever again.